Hey, what's up everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some music production tips while recreating DJ Snake's Taki Taki. So, without further ado, let's dive right in. So let's focus our attention on the drums. So first, I'm going to go ahead and have a drum rack loaded with some samples. And some of the samples that I'm using are coming from a sample pack that I've put together from some of my projects over the past year. This sample pack includes a bunch of one-shots, some transition effects, loops, and it's 100% royalty free. You can use them in any project. So you can download the sample pack just by clicking the link below in the description box. So let's go ahead and create the pattern. I'm going to just double click in the session view clip slot. And let's go ahead and holding down the command button and hitting 2 will change my grid value. I can go command while holding the command button and hitting 1 will bring the subdivisions shorter. So let's go ahead and place that at every quarter note value and hit our B button and draw in our kick pattern. Now let's go ahead and decrease the subdivisions and put our snare drum on the beat 4 and the beat. Now let's highlight this and duplicate that. Pretty straightforward reggaeton beat. Now what I'm gonna do is a little bit of layering. So I'm gonna go into the sample pack. I'm gonna go into the construction kit loop 06 Moomba jump, and I'm gonna choose this nice clap loop and drag and drop that into the drum rack. Now even though this is a loop, I can still go inside the actual simpler and just crop it so that's only triggering one sound within that. I'll go back into the pattern and highlight the snare roll so that all the snare patterns that I've created for that specific sound, you can see the little dotted line there highlighting that. They're all highlighted now. I'm going to hold the option, click, and drag up. And now it's going to be triggering the snare and the clap we just added. I can go in here now and set the balance. And there you go. So now next, I'm also going to go into the same construction kit folder, click the hats loop and drag that into right next to the drum rack. And now we have the hat loop. So now what I'm going to do is go to the drums and let's go ahead and beef them up by using the drum bus plugin. So I'm going to click this, drag and drop it, and now we have a drum bus plugin to use right on top of the drum rack. Let's dial down the dry and wet, maybe do a little bit of compression. So I'm going to bring the trim back on this and hit the come button. This is without it. Now let's focus our attention on the bass line. Now when I listen to the reference record, the bass line tone seems very dark and subby, meaning that there isn't a lot of like bright or buzzy. So I know immediately when I'm using a synth to recreate that, I'm going to head towards a sine wave and see where that gets me. So let's go into the instrument folder here. Let's choose a wavetable, and you could use any synthesizer plugin that you might have in your DAW to follow along. Just simply choose an oscillator and have it set to a basic sine wave. Here in the wavetable, that's the first one that you see here. So it's solo. So what we might need to do that'll help us get directly to the sound that we're looking for is let's go down an octave. So I'm going to head over here to the semitone section in this wavetable and hit -12 so we can go a whole octave lower. Now we're starting to hear some notes overlap each other, so they're ringing out. So I'm going to head over to the poly section and make sure that it's set to mono so that you don't get that overlapping stuff happening with the bass line. It's very important to do. I'm also going to go over here and shorten the release a little bit so that when the note stops playing, it doesn't linger on for a little bit, for Cool, and it's really straightforward. So let's dirty it up with a little bit of saturation. I'm gonna go here and add some filter drive saturation and just crank that up a little bit. And maybe just move, what's cool about the wavetable is that you can kind of move away from 100% of the wavetable that you're using. So let's say, see, just even moving that just slightly changes the tone. So let's lower the frequency filter so we can take a little of that buzziness that we're hearing. And I'm going to turn the sub oscillator on just to give some nice beef on the bottom end. I might have to adjust the attack a little bit. And if you can't hear these changes, I definitely recommend using a headphone to hear all the subtleties that we're doing to this bass line. Okay, that's cool there. And then what we're gonna do is go to our audio effects folder and let's add a little bit more saturator. And I'm gonna choose a soft sine as the type of saturation that we're using. By default, there's analog clip. Let's choose soft sine. And we're gonna dial the dry and wet down a little bit. Cool. Now to really give it that nice pocket, we're gonna add a compressor and we're gonna add some sidechain so that there's some movement going on between the bass line and the drums. So open up the compressor right here in Ableton Live and hit the sidechain button and just basically tell what is it that you want to have sidechain the bass line. Basically, what do you want to trigger this bass line so that every time you hear it, the bass line ducks and gets out of the way. In this case, I want the kick drum to do that. So we'll go to drums, and inside the drums, we're gonna choose ill kick pre-effects, meaning that it's before I've added any effects to that. So it's the straight original source of the kick. Let's see what that sounds like with the drums. And now let's focus on the flute riff that we hear throughout the record. It's really the spotlight centerpiece of this song. And so my personal approach to this would be to find a riff or a sample of a flute performance, and I would like to sometimes just sample one note out of that and use that note as the building block to creating the instrument, or recreating the flute riff, as opposed to maybe using a VST plugin that is a dedicated virtual instrument of a flute, because there's a lot of the nuances that you catch when you sample a riff and then slice one note and then build upon that. So here I have a track with a couple different flute samples or riffs, so I'll play them. And I like that this one note stands out, and that's really cool. Let's go to the other one. That one's good too. Now this is good, a nice held sustained note, makes it really easy to create riffs with because you have that one note. So if you're gonna hold it for a longer time or shorter, it's a lot easier to do with that sustained note. But for the sake of working, let's say you have just a short sample, you can't come across a sustained note, I'm gonna use the first sample here. So I'm gonna create a empty MIDI track. I'm gonna get that first flute sample and just click and drag that to the bottom of that MIDI track. And that is going to create a simpler. Now once the simpler is loaded, we can now trigger this MIDI track with the simpler loaded, and this is going to trigger the loop. So what I need to do is focus in on that one note. So I'm going to move the starting position, head over here to that one note, drag the end position so that every time we trigger the sample or the simpler, it's just that one note. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and play the riff. But we're going to do a couple little sound design and manipulation to this one note so that it feels a little bit more like the reference. So let's move the starting position a little bit over here. And let's dial the attack back just a little bit. Now the note itself might be just too short. So what I'm gonna do is enable the warp mode and then hit the ×2 button, which will allow the note to be stretched twice the amount of its speed. But we gotta leave out of the tone section because that's what's giving it that time stretchy vibe. So head back to beats, and now you get more of that reverse happening halfway through, which adds a little bit of movement to the sample. Now we can open up the release a little bit so that the end of the notes play out. And let's go to the voices, just like what we did with the bass line. Set it from 6 voice polyphony to 1 voice. And now we can go ahead and place a filter right after that. And you can now switch, you can transpose this for the beginning riff of the song. We can go right here to transpose, hit -12. And then let's go right back to the chorus octave. You can also add a little bit of spread to widen up the sound a little bit. And let's add some filter drive to just give it some nice saturation. Now I'm also going to add some movement like what we did with the bass line. So I'm going to go over here to the bass line, click on the sidechain compression, hold the option key, and drag that right over to the flute riff. Now the sample itself might be hitting a little too much, so I'm going to move that over and increase the attack. The farther I go to the left, the more of the actual, the more of the attack you hear of that note. So we'll leave it there and see what it sounds like with all the rest of the instrumentation. Now because we stretched that note to be twice as long and it's set to beat mode, meaning that it'll play forward and then try to play back in reverse, that little instance of it being played backwards is what's causing a little bit of that movement that seems to be cool. You can always adjust the different warping algorithms to go from beats to complex pro to see what tone or that you prefer to use. This is just one method, and I like this because sometimes the texture I get from sampling that one note is a little bit different than maybe replaying it with a virtual instrument that might seem a little bit too clean, and this will get a little bit more of that sample dirty, grimy type of vibe. So that's why I like doing it this way. Well, hey, I hope this video has been helpful for you in any way, and as my gift to you for watching this video, I'd love to send you the sample pack that I've mentioned earlier with some of the sounds that we used in this project. So go ahead, click the link below to download the sample pack. It's yours absolutely free. Comes with construction kits, one-shots, transition effects, and everything you need to really hit the ground running and make music. And it's 100% royalty free, so you can use them in your projects and share that music with the rest of the world. It works on any DAW. So just click the link below, or you could visit www.beatacademy.com/pack. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.